Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
After making the crossing to the other side of the sea, Jesus and his disciples came to land at Gennesaret and tied up there. As they were leaving the boat, people immediately recognized him. They scurried about the surrounding country and began to bring in the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. Whatever villages or towns or countryside he entered, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch only the tassel on his cloak. And as many as touched it were healed. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
First of all, about Saint Scholastica, the twin sister of Saint Benedict, we pray to her for protection from violent storms, and the reason is this. They would get together once a year. Her monastery was just a 5-mile walk from his monastery, but they'd get together once a year and just talk about spiritual things, and they really delighted in their being brother and sister. Well, he got up to leave one early evening, and she begged him to stay. She said, please, please stay. He said, no, I made the rule. No monk can stay away overnight from their monastery. And she said, oh, come on, stay. You made the rule. Well, no, she said that, but she was certainly implying that. He said, no, a rule's a rule. So anyway, she just begged the Lord. She said, Lord, change his heart. Lord, change his heart. And all of a sudden, a terrible storm happened. A terrible storm. And he could not go home. See? And the church always talks about what's called epikeia. That means you break a lesser law to obey a higher law. See, the higher law, no. He had to protect his body. He was the temple of the Holy Spirit. He should not have gone out in that violent storm. So you break the one law to obey the higher law. Okay, so that's those two. Now, the Ark of the Covenant in that first reading. See, the Ark of the Covenant. Wow. That contained the 2 tablets with the 10 Commandments. And, you know, that just gave them great joy that they had that presence of God with them. But did you hear how dark it got? It got so dark, the priests in the temple couldn't do their ministry. That's how dark it got. What's dark in your life? What's dark in your life? God's in the darkness. Doesn't feel it, doesn't seem it. He's there. The American Indian, what they would do is one of their rites of initiation and transformation. They would take the young teenage boy out, the father would, into the forest at night and leave him there all alone in the dark with howling animals. How scary. But that was part of his initiation into manhood. And he probably didn't sleep much that night. But when the dawn came, what he noticed in the distance is that Dad was there all along. Yeah. We don't see him a lot. We don't feel him often. But he's there. He's there. Now, maybe, one big reason we're not aware of his presence is we're not allowing enough silence in our life. And that's why we do this contemplative type prayer at this Mass. So often, Lord, where are you? Why are you not answering my prayer? Well, maybe he is. See, this is the Ark of the Covenant now. This is a tabernacle. God is there. But do we ever just sit with him like two lovers who just sit with one another, just be with one another, not talk, just be, just enjoy each other's presence. So I'm convinced the more we do that, the more we can hear his voice, not necessarily like a human voice, but maybe. Because I do know this, the more I do this silent prayer, what will happen is I'll get a message for some problem I'm facing. If not then, later on in the day. But we don't do it for the message. That's the byproduct. We do it just to love God and to let God love us. Okay? So, is it warm in here? Can somebody do something about that? Thanks, Connie. Okay. So, we might even think, these terrible things that are happening to me, this darkness, God's punishing me. Well, we're going to talk about that later. I just want to encourage you very, very much to spend some time, if only a minute a day, and then build from there. Just, enjoy a sunrise, a sunset. And you're probably already doing it. I'm just saying maybe increase it just a tad more, Okay, because he is there in the darkness. He is. It says it in the scriptures. I have placed my law in their heart. I have placed my law in their heart. The Bible's in our heart. It's there. People who wrote it, they were spending a lot of time in silence, and that's the way they were able to hear it. Okay, now notice the compassion Jesus has. He sees these people suffering, and he's probably tired, walking and preaching and walking, and yet he still makes himself available. Okay, so he's a healer, huh? He loves to heal. Now let's talk about the two sacraments of healing. Can you guess what they are? Louder. What? Penance, sacrament of reconciliation. Sacrament of the sick. Okay, see, there's 7 sacraments. Well, there's 2 basic sacraments, Christ and his church. Then the 7 derived from that. And there are the sacraments of initiation. Father Mike is an expert on teaching all this stuff. He teaches in the RCIA programs for people becoming Catholic. But anyway, so there's the sacrament of initiation, baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist. Then there's the sacraments of commitment, marriage and ordination. Then the sacraments of healing, penance, and the sacrament of the sick. Now, the focus of the sacrament of penance is not our sin. The focus of the sacrament of penance is not our sin. And I think that's why people don't go. It's hard. It takes courage to admit your sin to someone who doesn't know you that well. Shame me. The focus is his mercy. That's why we go there. To be assured that no matter what, he forgives. And even St. Teresa, the little flower, said if she committed the worst sins in the world and she saw the Lord, she would just run to him. She would just run. Because she knows that he would just envelop her. See? So I'm going to see y'all running to confession now. Okay, so we're there to celebrate his mercy. That's why you got to choose your confessor well. And the church has always said that. You get to choose your own confessor. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this penance stuff that the priest gives you. It's not a punishment. It's a healing sacrament, so it's a prescription. It's a prescription to help you to heal. You go to a physical therapist to heal, huh? And doesn't it hurt sometimes? Some of those exercises, I had shoulder surgery and I used to have to literally climb walls. Oh, wow, did that hurt? But the physical therapist was not punishing me, and she was not angry with me. She was healing me. Your darkness is healing you in a way that maybe you're not aware, but it is. But here, remember the difference between curing and healing. Curing means your problem goes away. Healing means even if it doesn't, you get to a space of gratefulness and peace. In other words, you don't let circumstances determine your level of joy. It's not that you deny the afflictive feelings and pains you have, but you don't lose your joy. That the healing state allows you to be a rainbow person, someone who can experience joy and afflictive feelings at the same time, sun and rain at the same time. Okay, so well, ask yourself, what's your darkness teaching you? Whether it's a financial problem, a relationship problem, health problem, all the above and more, what's it teaching you? Bet you it's teaching you to pray more. You know, even if you say, God, I'm so mad at you, that's still prayer. You're talking to God. Yeah. And He can handle it. Yeah. And you can always say you're sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, it's probably teaching you to pray more, maybe to pray differently. Maybe it's teaching you to have compassion on someone who has the same problem. But it's all love. It's all love. It just doesn't feel that way. Okay. And okay, now the sacrament of the sick. We don't call it the last rites. How depressing. The last rites. I walked into a friend who had a heart attack. I went to the hospital. I came in with my oils. He's my friend. He says, get out of here. We've made God so scary. We've made death so scary. Death is new life. That's, you know, is it that the caterpillar dies, or is it the butterfly's born? Huh? Okay, so the sacrament of the sick, we call it that because the priest comes to pray over the person and anoint them with holy oil, give them communion, hear their confession. And what that does is this. It does one of two things. Well, it prays for a healing, actually. That's why we call it sacrament of the sick. But the caveat is, if it's God's will that you die, it prepares you to meet your Maker. So it's a twofold sacrament. It's there to pray for your cure and your healing. And if the cure is not God's will, then it does prepare you to meet your Maker. So, bottom line, let's realize God is a compassionate God. Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you feel that God's angry with you when you commit sin, when you do something wrong? Do you feel He's angry with you? Or do you feel He has compassion on you? See, if you choose to believe He's not angry, but He's compassionate, then you're going to start treating people that way too. Instead of getting angry with them because of their behavior, you'll feel bad for them. Now why does He have compassion on us? Well, see, He set the world up this way. Remember? He said, you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. Another way of saying that contemporarily is, what goes around comes around. You send out a negative behavior, a negative feeling. It's going to come back. You're going to reap that. And so He sees us sin. He said, oh, my poor kid. They really don't know what they're doing. This is going to come back and ooh boy, it's going to hurt him. So He feels, he feels bad. These kids are mine. They just cause themselves more problems. And then He sets about sending love, forgiveness, saying, that's okay, learn from the situation. That's all I ask. Just learn from the situation. Do your best. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. So, we have sacraments of healing, and that indicates He's a very, very compassionate God. What a wonderful God we have. It's so nice to see some new faces here. Nice to see the old faces too.
You had a comment, a couple ladies that moved down here.
Here's